Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 26 of Rocket Lab Weekly, which is actually insane. This is 6 months of nonstop doing weekly Rocket Lab Weekly
Wow.
podcasts. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Time flies. So I have here with me Dave G. Sorry. And yeah, we're going to talk about Q1. Rocket Lab is finished. Q2 is coming up, and there has been some tweets about some delayed launches. Then there is some contract speculation for Rocket Lab, and there is some other exciting space industry news that we will cover.
Sorry, I just realized I'm showing as Dave. I don't know why I'm double Dave there, but anyway.
You see that's what messed me up when I said your name. I can change your name if you want
It's
to.
not a big deal. I just thought it was funny.
I change it to your Twitter handle at
Okay.
Dave G Investing, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So let me just share the screen. How was your week in terms of your portfolio, by the way?
Pretty good overall. I made a few trades. Yeah, I guess I've just been enjoying some of the short-term trades a little bit while, I still hold long most of my main stocks. This is the first time I ever made a short trade. So I've like bought puts before and stuff, but this is the first time I actually shorted a stock, and it was Reddit because it went up, it doubled in like 2 days after the IPO. And I thought it just went too high too fast. And I
The
find this
options were not
pattern.
ready.
Sorry, what's that?
The options were not ready. Like they
Yeah,
were not.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I just find this happens so often with hyped up IPOs as they crash very quickly. So yeah, I sold the shares that I do not have for $67 per share, and now it's down to I think like high 40s, something like that. So that worked
Wow.
out okay. I think Rocket Lab's been doing okay this week, so yeah, happy there. How's your week been?
Yeah, pretty flat. I've been also trading options on my positions. Unfortunately, I have a standing order in on a Rocket Lab call, and it never goes through. Like because we have these big wicks, and then I'm always like, okay, now it will go through, and then it comes right back down.
Mm-hmm.
So we see if it goes through. But on Palantir, I wrote calls when there was a 3% day, and then it's been going down ever since. So I
Covered
think
calls, right?
cover calls, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I made I think $1,000 something last week on that. So that was pretty good.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, but you have been also killing on your trades because you had I mean
Well,
Nvidia was a long like that was not a trade, right? Like that's a
yeah, that
long
one
term.
I consider to be an investment and not a trade. And I always want to make that distinction because I think like your goals and thought processes between the two can be very different. Like I'll trade around a stock that I don't necessarily see myself owning long term. So yeah. But Nvidia, I do plan to hold for, a very long time.
Yeah. And you had what other trades that I mean anyways, you have Rocket Lab calls, right? Also since when the stock was at $4, no?
Yeah, I do. Those are pretty flat still. It's such a long strike. It's like a leap. So 2026 is the expiry date. So small moves don't move the stock that much over the short term or the contract.
Okay, cool.
But
So
the depreciation value on my Rocket Lab puts has continued to drop, which is nice. So that's another one that's doing well.
yeah, awesome. And you have LUNR stock, right? That's also a trade.
Yeah, that's a trade as opposed to an investment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about that later, but basically there's this announcement from NASA supposed to be coming Monday, I believe. Sounds like it may have already been leaked kind of, but basically they're entering the next phase of deciding who's going to build lunar rovers for the Artemis program. So you drive around on the moon like back in the Apollo days, and Intuitive Machines is leading one of the groups trying to get the contract to build the rover. And I just thought, you know what, this has been a very violently moving stock, up and down, and it's moving on news. I personally felt it highly likely that LUNR's team would get one of the awards, and sounds like they will. So, I mean, we'll see how that plays out on Monday or Tuesday.
And how are you doing on that trade? Because you bought in, and then they announced an equity raise, right?
Yeah, shelf offering. So it's like basically these additional shares are like kind of on the shelf, and then they can actually issue them or sell them, when they deem fit at the price they deem fit. So it's not like we're issuing them tomorrow or something, but that was unlucky timing. And that's always the risk when you talk about trading versus investing. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, like I got screwed over, I knew the risks. So, this happened. The stock unfortunately dropped probably like 9%, which isn't huge. And I just bought shares as opposed to a call option because I didn't have high confidence on this. So I figured, if we don't get a big move on this news, I can always just sell my shares again. And it's not like an all or nothing type deal. So I still have some hopes that we'll see the stock move up early next week. And, I guess worst case scenario, if it stays flat or goes down more, I'm looking at maybe a 10% loss.
Okay. I'm curious how this announcement of like this new NASA announcement, which we're going to also talk about here, is going to move the price. Maybe
Me
it will
too.
completely undo the.
Yeah, like it's not, the final decision from what I understand. It's like the first phase, which is kind of they're picking the teams that have submitted proposals, and then they'll get money to do a feasibility study. And then I guess they'll go from these studies and maybe decide the final rovers that they want to pick. But it's a step in the right direction. And once you get there, we're talking like $4+ billion. So, Intuitive Machines would have to share that money with some of the partners on the project, but it would still be massive for them for sure.
I mean, when I was looking at that number, I guess we can change the order and talk about the LUNR announcement now.
Oh, well, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, we're so much into it now. Let me see if I can bring it up on the screen. I have something here by Space Equities. So anybody watching, so this is the news that we're covering. As far as I understand, this is not an official announcement. This is sort of leaked somehow. And it looks like Intuitive Machines Consortium is going to be awarded a NASA contract for the Lunar Terrain Vehicle, whatever that means, services contract. And the total value of the contract is 4.6 billion. And, I must admit, when I was looking at LUNR as a company, I was like, okay, but, going to the moon is like such a niche contract. And then it was such a niche area, I was like, how can you make a business out of this, when you have all the rocket launches and everything around Earth? And then when I saw that number, I was like, Jesus Christ, okay, that's a big contract.
It is big. Yeah. The very fair criticism with Intuitive Machines, right, is like, let's say a new president gets elected in 4 years and he just decides, screw the moon, we're going to go back to trying to see if we can go to asteroids or something, or Mars or whatever. Yeah. Like these programs can change. Like, I think we're so far down the road on Artemis, it probably won't, but they have like a very huge single customer risk, when the customer being NASA with the Artemis program. So, but at the same time, NASA pays well. They pay their bills on time, and there's a lot of money for the moon right now, relatively speaking. So,
yeah, so it's looking good. And how much are they raising? Because one of my things that was really like I didn't like with the company is their insanely complicated cap table of, that they had convertible offerings, and they had warrants, and they had many things I don't even understand. And as far as and they had very little, like only a few $1 million in the bank. And they did quite a big raise, or it wasn't but it was
so
quite a big...
They at the end of Q4 they did only have $5 million. That position's a lot better already now, like 50 something million. Did I say billion or million? Anyway, million.
Yeah.
And then this is for up to 300 million. So it's kind of a shelf offering as opposed to like the shares hitting the open market today. So basically, now that they've submitted this, they'll have the option whenever they decide to sell those shares for additional capital. So I don't think there's any extra shares on the market like as of tomorrow or anything like that, but they can, be opportunistic and wait until the stock hits a level where they want to sell those shares or however they want to do it.
But it's not
300 million is a
convertible.
pretty big number considering the value of the company.
How much is the company market cap?
I think it was around $1 billion last I checked. And that's something else people should know is Yahoo Finance actually had that wrong for some reason. And people were looking at the Yahoo Finance app and it was saying the market cap was 300 million and they're raising 300 million. And people thought, that's crazy. But that was incorrect. I would have to double check, but I think it's more like $1 billion.
Okay. I mean, it's still like a 30% dilution.
Yeah,
and
that's correct. Yeah.
And it's a straight equity offering. So it's not convertible, not loan. It's just straight equity.
I believe so. I have to double check. I want to see right now just the market cap to confirm. But it's not one that's you would be interested in investing in? Too risky for you?
Yeah, I mean, for now, it feels like when I was looking at it, it was way too little money in the bank. I was thinking that they would have a capital raise coming, and which actually came quite...
somewhat.
Exactly. And I'm a lot more... I mean, I'm very cash constrained right now, and I have enough Rocket Lab, and I must say I'm really loving Tesla right now, like where it's at and the sentiment.
I mean, I've held Tesla shares for years and I've been a little frustrated with the stock over the past year or two. So it's exciting what the FSD improvements are looking like, and maybe that can improve take rate and improve the numbers. But certainly I don't have any cash to add to my Tesla position.
Yeah, I understand. So did you find LUNR's market cap?
Yeah, according to CNBC, at least, we're looking at around $800 million. So that's still quite significant if they were to...
Yeah, and it's a double-edged sword because the stock price can also go down, right? So I guess that they're not putting it out on the market because they're hoping... Maybe they knew that this contract from NASA was coming, and then...
Could be like, well, we'll be able to capitalize on the good news. I think they have like up to 3 years or something like that to, whenever they want to do it. So, and they can do pieces, not all at once.
Yeah. Cool. So that was our LUNR Weekly section. So now we go back to...
Good to see you, everybody. Have a good week. We'll talk to you next time.
So we go back to Rocket Lab, where we had a record quarter that just finished. We had the most amount of launches. I think Space Systems did amazing. We didn't see a freaking Archimedes fire test, and there's no news when that test is coming. And we have had some tweets. Let me pull them up.
Well, Adam kind of said maybe April, May timeframe, but
yeah,
we'll see on that.
Exactly. And then there was some tweets, which was it deleted from here, that some launches got pushed into the future. So I was getting very worried that the tweet disappeared. I cannot put it on the screen. So I was very worried about, okay, what's up? We're not getting, the Archimedes test. What's going to happen in Q2 if there's not enough launches? So just before this show, I actually took a look at the next spaceflight app, and I listed all the space flights that Rocket Lab has listed in this app. I think that this app is like, it's looking at the FAA applications, or things that NASA has approved, so it's quite official. And it looks like there is 7 launches in Q2, so that's fantastic. That's even more than they forecasted. So
do you know if one of those are like the NASA pre-fire launches on there?
No, none.
Okay.
The names are Arcadia from Wallops, Kinesis 1 to 5, Hawkeye launch 2, Hawkeye launch 3, and Strix 5 and Strix 6. I'm not sure what they are. And there is a launch for Korea on April 23rd, which I think is their next announced
I did
launch.
hear about that one. Yeah, I mean, these launches are moving around all the time. It wouldn't shock me if we don't see all those happening in this quarter. But I think it's kind of nice to see so many commercial launches on the books. Like, it used to be for a while relying on the government being such a big, important customer. And a lot of these Earth imaging companies are using Rocket Lab and Electron. So yeah, that's nice to see.
Yeah. The only thing is, which is a bit scary for me, is there is 3 launches in April, 0 in May, and the rest of the launches are all in June. And so that means that in June, if this is true, but I'm expecting that it will be shuffled around, that in June month alone, they would do as many launches as Q1 this year, which was a record quarter. Would be very nice to see, but I'm not even sure that they're able, like, all of them are from New Zealand. They do have 2 pads in New Zealand, so
seems like these days the Wallops one is almost exclusively HASTE. I'd like to see that change, but
yeah, one of them is Wallops, this Arcadia. I'm not sure what it's not a HASTE. It's not a HASTE launch.
That's good to see. The cost per launch, like the marginal cost, is actually lower out of New Zealand. So if you're looking at the numbers, you do want to see more New Zealand launches versus the US launches, because they have to pay like a fee per launch on the US side.
Yeah. I think that there's a fee also in New Zealand, but it's something
it's a
ridiculously
lot
little. Yeah, it's like $30,000 or something, like New Zealand dollars or something like this.
Yeah.
So do you have any wild predictions for Q2, what we're going to see?
Wild predictions. Well, to be honest with you, like, I don't, track the launches in scheduling with a magnifying glass and look at each one. It can be fun, I know, but things are they seem like they're constantly moving around. Sometimes customers aren't ready. Sometimes things get delayed. And so, I just kind of watch out for them when they happen. I think we should see, at least 4, I would imagine. I don't know if we'll see 7, but I do expect us to hit, like maybe 20 launches for the year. I know they're saying 22. Do you think they'll get the full 22?
I really don't know. Like, I would want to say yes, but after I listened to Adam Spice and how hard it is to, because he specifically made a point that it's even quarter to quarter, it's super hard to predict the rocket launches because customers can be late,
right?
And that surprised me, because that, like, basically what he was saying is you can have a launch scheduled for April, and then it can get delayed into like September.
Yeah, well, we just saw a couple getting delayed into August, which to me I don't find very upsetting. I know a couple, some people are like, oh darn, their launches got pushed back, but it's still launching in August, so it's still this year. I guess the quarterly numbers may not be quite as good when you have launches getting pushed a bit later, but I think for shareholders, all we really need to care about is that they get launched eventually and they get paid.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Matt in the chat.
Exactly. Where are you, Matt?
I
We're
don't know.
missing you.
If you can hang out in the chat, you can come and talk, I guess.
So, where were we? Yeah, on the launches. I mean, look, if they do more than 4, it's going to be a record quarter in terms of rocket launches. And I think that their space systems is going to do another record year. So maybe Q2 is going to be the first over 100 million quarter. So that's going to be very, very nice for the stock. And let's see how focused Wall Street is, because it seems like the sole focus right now is on, the Archimedes fire test and Neutron going forward.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe, I think a lot of people are maybe just not paying attention to the company, but
yeah.
Like, so you think that's the thing holding back the stock is they need the static fire?
I have that feeling,
because it doesn't like add anything to, the income statement immediately.
I know, but I think it takes away costs. Maybe that's what they're most worried about. That if the launch happens on time, then it's like, okay, all the financial predictions hold, and if the launch doesn't happen correctly, then all the predictions about profitability, how much it will cost to get Neutron on the pad, and then I think even if the company is very, very enticing, the Wall Street institutions will take Matt's advice, because he tells people to, like, if you're very risk averse, you can just wait until Neutron has launched and then come into Rocket Lab. And I think that a lot of them are going to do it that way.
Yeah, makes sense.
And I was also looking at the stock price technically. It's very, very interesting from just from a 30,000 view. Like, we have been in a channel since what is it, two years now?
Yeah.
Maybe even 3 years, and 4 was almost always the bottom, or this 4,370, and then we did rallies sometimes very close to 8. So I'm actually expecting that we are going to unexplainably go back up in this channel. I don't know if we're going to break out of this channel. I don't see how we would go lower than the bottom of the channel. Like, the company is doing so much better than it was in 2022. I don't know what would be the reason that the stock would go below 3.7. And I think that at that time there would be a lot of people stepping in to buy the stock.
Yeah, you'd have to think so. I mean, it looks like we have a bit of a wedge there. Personally, like, not financial advice, I feel like there's a chance we move up relatively significantly soon. Obviously, staying below like that $8 per share line until Neutron flies. I feel like we'll stay below there. But I still remember, like, when we had that big run up last time and I was holding stock, it kind of came out of nowhere too. So, I mean, yeah, you never know.
Yeah, I was really also looking at it myself, that this rally that you see in the middle that goes up to $8, it's like a bunch of 5% days, like one after the other. Yeah. And then when you have it for 2 months straight, those 5%, they add up to being an almost 100% on the stock in no time. I mean, there's like some of the big candles, they're like 10% days, but yeah, like Rocket Lab easily can do 3 to 5% days in any direction. So I'm pretty sure that this is coming, especially probably after the Q1 earnings. Because
the only thing I'm kind of a little concerned about is the macro side of things. Like, the overall markets seem kind of high, and when we get into seeing like what was happening with the DJT and Reddit IPOs when they just went ballistic, it reminds me a little bit of back in 2021 when we had like every SPAC doubling when they have no revenues. And I hope it doesn't. I hope it doesn't bode poorly for the overall market that things are like getting a little too frothy, because Rocket Lab's already at this low level. Does it move down if the overall markets move down, or tough to say?
Yeah, I've been also thinking a lot about this, but at the same time, like I feel that this 3.70 or 3.9 is such a strong support. And I don't know, it feels like, the market has been like we have been like reverse the market, like the market was going up and Rocket Lab has been going down, and
That's
hopefully
true.
we will be reversed the other way too, like the market down. And
hopefully, it hasn't really participated in a lot of the gains lately.
I think we can agree that whoever is buying at this point or adding at this point, they're taking very, very little risk. There's like, of course, anything can happen, but there's relative very low downside because you're buying very near the support line, and a huge upside in the stock.
Yeah, I hope so. My puts expire April 18th, I believe. So assuming that doesn't get assigned, in which case I would have to sell other stocks, then I'd make $1,000. I would hope if the stock is still in the low fours, I'm personally just planning to throw that $1,000 into the stock and get a little more shares than I would have otherwise been able to.
Nice. We have a question here by Dania Barna. After the Archimedes test, what is the next riskier part of Neutron's development?
You're
asking two rocket scientists here.
Yes. Engineers. I feel like the tanks is going pretty well. Like they already said, the upper stage tank is kind of the thinnest, more difficult tank compared to the first stage. So not too worried about that first stage tank personally. And the structures, I think they have a lot of experience with the carbon composite, so I'm not too worried about the structures. Maybe just re-entry and figuring out the landings, and they haven't landed propulsively before, so that could be issue. But even if it delivers, if that does become a problem, the rocket will still have successfully delivered a payload to orbit. So that would not be bad. Hard to say. I mean, so many things can go wrong with rockets. Do you have any thoughts on that? What you would keep an eye on?
I actually, because if you listen to Adam Spice again and Peter Beck, but mostly Adam Spice on the recent conferences, like it does sound like the minute the Archimedes test is done, like you're in the finish line, and then you actually have like a 6 to 9 months straight line into launch. So I think that after the Archimedes engine, it should be downhill. I don't know what is the next. I guess the next riskiest is the flight itself,
Yeah. Well, I mean, we still haven't seen pressure testing on that first stage tank, or, they still have some infrastructure they need to put up at Wallops, but
the
infrastructure, I don't worry too much about.
Yeah. I mean, on the last rocket, I designed. No, I'm kidding. I don't know anything. We are hobby, like our strength is more in analyzing stocks than analyzing rocket development.
And let us know in the comments if you guys have any thoughts on what you think would be the next biggest risk, Whiskey, if you're still here. I know there's often a lot of very smart people who watched the Follow Rocket Lab.
Yeah. So I'm just checking on the comments here. Cool. Engines and infrastructure. Black Hawk, New Zealand. So we see what is the riskiest one.
Yeah. I mean, I guess they haven't used the canards before for steering in atmosphere. Maybe that could take some learnings, but I'm sure they'll figure it out.
Yeah. And by the way, on the landing of the rocket, like I think that the way that they're pricing the rocket is that the rocket is going to be paid in full by the customer on every launch. And if they don't stick the landing, it technically doesn't do anything to their financials. Like this is my understanding. So the rocket is probably $30 million to build, something like this. And they get paid $55 million for the launch. And then I'm expecting, I mean, the Falcon 9, I think it was like 13 tries or something to make it land. So I think if Neutron lands in 7 tries, that's an unbelievably good achievement that I will be very happy with.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think it'll take them less than that. You know, it's something that's now been done before. Falcon 9 was retrofitted. It wasn't originally designed for the landing. So the fact that they're planning for this from the get-go, I think should help. And it's kind of like part of the overall design for the rocket. So, I mean, I think if we're throwing out wild guesses here, I think they land one of the first 5. But maybe I'm being too confident. Maybe I am. I don't know. I think it's a bit of a different design philosophy from SpaceX, though, which is very much, okay, we'll blow it up. We'll learn something. We'll blow up the next one. We'll learn something more. I don't think they're necessarily planning on destroying as much hardware.
Yeah, I can take you up on that bet. I don't know. We can make it like $100 bet or something.
Yeah, you think it's going to take more than 3 tries, 5 tries?
I think more than 5. Yeah,
more than 5. I'll take that bet.
Okay,
I think,
okay. But I think we can agree that on the financials of the company, it doesn't like, because once they're flying these rockets, they don't have the Neutron development costs anymore. And as the rockets are paid in full, if they don't land the rockets, it's not like, it shouldn't make the stock go down, or it doesn't, like, the only thing that happens is their gross margin doesn't increase, right? And then once they start to refly the rockets, that's when you will see like a very nice expansion in the gross profit.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing is if they lose that rocket, you know, may take them longer to get the next one built, to have the next launch, so it could hit the cadence and, you know, profitability a little bit, because they'll have to build those next ones. But I don't think it will be a financial disaster if the first rocket blows up.
Yeah. There's a lot of people in the comments who's saying less than 5.
I'm the other dude, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and Francisco wrote over and under 13 tries, and a lot of people write under. So I'm not sure that they're saying under 5 and they're answering you, or under 13.
I think Francisco is extremely pessimistic on that 13 number. But
no, he also says 5 or under. Maybe he answered on my Falcon 9 comment.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So we covered Neutron, the next quarter, and as catalyst for the next quarter, we are hoping for some very nice contract announcements. And I think you did a very good video this week about possible contracts that Rocket Lab can get. And Tim also made a tweet storm about let me see, why am I not able to share? So basically he is saying that MDA has gotten a $2 billion contract from a company to produce satellites, and they are not expert on satellite buses. And he is thinking that Rocket Lab is very well suited because they have very special requirements on the satellites, that they need to survive 11 years in low Earth orbit. And as far as I understand, the standard is like 5 to 6 years in low Earth orbit. And for the contract, it's very important that it's a company with the heritage, and it's a proven technology that is fast to deliver. And Rocket Lab's own Photon, which I guess was renamed now to something else, has already done 11 years. It's been certified. Rocket Lab is very good with production, so they would be a prime candidate to get this.
Yeah, potentially. Everyone's seeing our top secret chat, by the way. I don't know if it minds, but or if it matters. But so the thing is, I do think MDA is set up this new production facility in Montreal. So I It's not entirely clear, but it's possible they could be building out the satellite buses themselves. Historically, Rocket Lab has worked with them. So if you're familiar with the Globalstar deal, MDA got that contract and they're doing payload and other stuff like that and integration. And they subcontracted the satellite buses out to Rocket Lab, which is one of the main reasons Tim was thinking it would make sense for MDA to work with Rocket Lab again as well if they are looking to subcontract that out. He also looked at some of Rocket Lab's competitors and whether they could meet these requirements MDA has for this constellation, which, by the way, is a massive constellation, Telesat. I think like $2 billion or something like that. So very big. Yeah, it's mostly speculation. I personally wouldn't put the odds that high that Rocket Lab builds the buses for these. Guess it's possible. I would say even if they don't, there's every chance that they can build some components somewhere for these satellites, whether solar or otherwise, reaction wheels, whatever, star trackers. The goal is to have a piece of Rocket Lab technology on every satellite that goes to space. So every time you see a big contract like this, it should make you a little bit happy one way or another. But yeah, they could. I think it's very speculative at this point.
Yeah. I mean, it looked very plausible when I was reading his tweet. Also
he did a lot of good research.
Yeah. So anyone, you can follow Tim. You see his Twitter, and then you can also see his. He does very well thought out tweets about Rocket Lab.
Yeah, whenever if I'm making a tweet, I usually just casually type out 2 sentences. Tim is like an essay that he's been researching for the past week, and he's got all his sources listed and everything. He's pretty good follow if you're a Rocket Lab fan.
Yeah, cool. So do you think that there is any surprise contracts coming, surprise announcements?
I mean, we often get contract news at quarterly earnings. Wouldn't surprise me if we hear of some new contracts. Adam Spice did say, can't remember if it was the last earnings call or one of the conferences he did, that they are going after some contracts for space systems that are even bigger than this SDA one for the 500+ million. I talked a little bit in that video about a couple other potential things Rocket Lab could be going after within the SDA. There's these Gamma satellites, 20 of those. Their current contract is for 18 of the Tranche 2 transport layer. So that would be big. There's this new study they're looking for for the feasibility of being able to deorbit satellites that can't come down under their own power. I thought that would be interesting because Rocket Lab launched that spacecraft for, I think it was Astroscale, to go inspect a satellite in orbit. So they've already demonstrated kind of some of that capability, not the payload themselves, but that could be something they could be interested in. There was a company, I think it was Raytheon, who was contracted to build some SCA satellites as well. And they recently basically had to drop out. The SDA hasn't said for sure whether they're looking to get someone else to build those or not. They say they can operate the constellation without those satellites, but maybe there's a chance they still want them built and they get someone else to build them. So that's another one Rocket Lab could bid on. So a lot of big government contracts to go after these days.
Yeah. So it's like Tesla. It feels like we're in this quiet, in between, contract announcements and big announcements, and the company is just quietly executing at this point.
Yeah, I mean, this week, the backlog's the biggest it's ever been. It's huge right now. Yeah. So I don't think there's anything to be worried about from, a backlog point of view or how much business they have currently. But obviously, we still want to see them continue to grow.
Exactly. Cool. I think this was all the Rocket Lab news for this week. It wasn't like a super busy week in terms of, and it's Easter week, by the way. Happy Easter for everyone who celebrates it.
Yeah. Yeah, I see Interplanetary there. We have several whiskeys apparently in the chat today, but expecting an announcement on an acquisition eventually. Do you think we'll hear anything about that on the next earnings call, or is it going to be later in the year?
There's no telling with these guys because they keep the cards so close to their chest, right? And like for sure, if they have made the acquisition, it's going to be announced. But I feel like if the acquisition is still on the negotiations or like due diligence or discovery, I don't think that they're going to talk about it. But I'm very, very excited to see it because Adam Spice says that it will give clues and breadcrumbs into what they're potentially interested in going into for their space applications. So I'm actually dying to see that announcement.
Yeah, I mean, speculating about that a lot in the Discord lately. I don't know. A lot of people seem to be thinking about Earth observation, but it's hard to say.
I can see why I caused this thing with my comment that he said in the interview that it's not a good business. Oh, I wish I could find it, but there's just so many interviews. But I'm pretty sure he said that because I'm pretty sure that he said that, but we don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I just feel like the Earth observation is such a saturated market, right?
Yeah, it's difficult. And obviously they have so many customers doing Earth observation. It feels like that's a really big part of Electron's manifest. So a little awkward to be competing with your own customers, but I know that's something SpaceX does, and they don't seem to have a problem with it.
Yeah. So I guess we will see on the announcement. When do you think we will have the Q2 earnings call? Because Q1 was, I'm a newer shareholder, but I feel like it was insanely late compared.
They always feel late. So yeah, I mean, probably towards the
end of
the quarter. Because, and it's funny because I remember I was talking with someone, it might have even been Matt, and I was like, it's amazing because their projections for the next quarter, every earnings call, are so accurate. And he's like, well, by the time they do their earnings call, the next quarter's already over almost. So but I'd have to look up the date for it.
I'm not even sure it's announced yet, but
well, we could see when they did Q2 last year. It'll probably be around the same time.
Okay. Yeah. And any stocks that you're looking at for next week? Any trades? Anything that is interesting?
Well, I told you about my Intuitive Machines one, so I'll be looking to probably even sell that next week after the news about their lunar terrain vehicle hits. Hopefully, it'll move the stock somewhat. I'm not entirely sold on if I want to be a long-term shareholder on the company yet. So this was more of just a trade that I wanted to get in of and out of. So I'll look to sell that probably. Maybe just put profits into Rocket Lab if I can, because I think it's cheap at this point. So if you look at the performance of Rocket Lab versus most other publicly traded space companies, it's really underperformed most of them lately. So I feel like it's a little cheaper. You've had Spire has been going crazy lately. Redwire's done very well. Probably look to close out my short position on Reddit, which I thought would come back to Earth after soaring, and it already has done. So I'm already at probably like a 30% gain on that Reddit short trade, and like to close out of it pretty soon. We'll see. I feel like it could get to maybe the mid 30s. I was thinking about shorting Truth Social because it was going
just going to ask,
but I was like, I don't know if I'm brave enough for that, because the thing is, I feel like this one, I think, yes, we can all say the earnings today or whatever don't support the valuation it's reached, but that doesn't mean big
I think it's like a 2,000 price to sales or something.
Yeah, but then the thing is, like, fans and supporters might go crazy with it, so it's a little scary. I could buy puts on it because then your liability is more capped, but you're also restricted on the timeline. Actually, I don't even know if the puts are available for it yet. That's a question.
Yeah, I think it takes like a month. I heard after an IPO.
There may not be puts available. That's the problem. So while I think Truth Social is overvalued, and I do feel like it will follow a similar path to Reddit in terms of the crash, it's scary. Because when you go short, you have technically unlimited liability. Like the stock could theoretically go to infinity. So
yeah, I would stay away from that one too. Because it's not really trading on fundamentals. Like I think that a lot of people, I've seen on YouTube and Twitter that there is a lot of people who are just like, I'm supporting this guy and I'm buying the stock and I'm like never selling it because it's not about the stock. It's about something else,
Yeah.
And if there's enough people doing that, even if they're not doing it with, super much money, it does, lessen the float, does put their,
Matt makes a good point in chat as well. Waiting till the lockup period ends and then people start unloading their shares and then you can buy puts then. Not a bad idea.
Here's the thing, Matt, you need to be here. And number two is I heard that the big guy doesn't have a lockup period. Like he can sell at any time.
Oh, can he? Well, he's probably already selling then. I hear he needs the cash for some legal bills, but I don't think we want to delve too far into.
Okay, I'm just curious because we're not US, so like we don't really have a say or right to speak about this. But what do you think are the chances that he's the president, the next president? Like it's like not political, not what you would want to see, but what do you think
I understand. I really don't know. I want to say it's like 50-50. I kind of feel like it could go either way, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. For what I'm reading on Twitter, I'm almost like sure that he's going to be.
You think he's gonna win?
Yeah, I don't know. That's my job, but what do I know?
Do you think that helps the stock, DJT, if he wins?
I think so. I think so. I watched the All-In pod, and then they said something that it's also like a backdoor way of like getting political donations to him. And like if you can invest big chunks of, so again, like it comes back to that some people are not buying the stock. They're like, because there's rules on like how much money you can donate to a campaign, but you can buy like, I don't know, 500 million into the stock and call him like, hi, we're very big holders of the stock, and I'm sure his attitude is different.
And then he can sell or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
We talked about LLP a little bit, Savici, just talking about how great they've done lately in terms of the stock performance. Not a shareholder, unfortunately. I've missed the boat on that one. Although, I don't know if it's too late to invest in them or not. But
which one is LLP?
Spire.
LLAP.
I know. Terran. Sorry, LLP is Terran, I believe, right? I'm pretty sure. LLAP. Yeah, Terran Orbital. It looks. I don't know. They may get taken over. Personally, I'm just staying away from it. I don't know. It looks a little risky. They've had some problems with their biggest customer. I don't know. Yeah, there's been some drama with the CEO from what I've heard as well.
Yeah, interesting. It's I saw a tweet by Crossroads, who was doing a Twitter poll on how many stocks individual investors have, and I was actually very surprised that it was something like 30% of the, and it was I think it was 1,000 people answering the poll, if I remember correctly, and it was like 30% had between 2 to 6 stocks only, and and another 30 or 40% had between 7 to 15 stocks. And then, the having a one stock portfolio that was I don't know, like 10%, and having a 15 plus that was also like something like 10%. And that's for me the problem when I look at other companies, is that like I don't have unlimited capital, right? And then if I'm buying that company, then I'm not buying some other company, or I would have to, like, some guy on Twitter was like, yeah, you should just sell your Palantir and then, buy this other company. And I'm like, no freaking way I'm selling any of my it's like, I feel the same with Rocket Lab, like I will be in my coffin, and you have to like pry out of my dead corpse if you want to get my shares.
Yeah.
And
just a quick question for Savici here. I'm assuming you don't want the takeover to happen if you're a shareholder, because it's currently trading above that price already. So, but yeah, I think
explain that.
Lockheed made an offer to take over Terran Orbital for about $1 per share, and Terran Orbital is currently trading, I think, more like 110 to 115. So the board actually adopted this poison pill because they don't want to get taken over. They feel like the value is higher, so they're trying to prevent Lockheed from just acquiring the shares, I think, on the open market and becoming majority shareholder or something like that. I don't know what's going on with adult friend finder thing here in Penthouse. What are we talking about?
I don't know. I was also looking through the comments, and that one was interesting.
Yeah.
So cool. I mean, do you have anything else to add to this week's?
I don't think so. I mean, it's a pretty quiet news week, but that's all right. Just good to hang out with everyone.
Yeah. Last question on this. Do you know anything about DXYZ? I don't even know what stock that is.
I don't think I know them. Is that a space company as well? I can quickly see.
So as it turns out, the Terran CEO was the CEO of Adult Friend Finder.
Destiny Tech 100. No, I don't know that one. Well, I mean, clearly his space credentials are great then if he's coming from Adult Friend Finder.
Yeah. Okay, cool, guys. I think we did well with this episode. Again, this was a slow week, Easter week. By the way, in Sweden, even Monday everything is closed. Do we have a market on Monday, or is it closed?
I think the market's open on Monday.
Okay.
It was closed on Friday, but I think it's open on Monday.
Okay, cool. I mean, I hate the days when the market is not open, and
yes. Yeah, it's a little more boring.
Yeah, we really are finance junkies. You need your daily hit of the.
Yeah, it's funny getting to this point. I remember when I was younger, and my mom was the one always watching. It wasn't CNBC in our house; it was Report on Business Television, which is like a similar thing. And I was like, yeah, I'll never be like that, watching all the stock symbols and whatever. And here I am.
Yeah, the same here. Funny where life takes you. Mm-hmm. So thanks everyone for watching. Please make sure you subscribe. Also, Dave G's YouTube and Twitter is in the description box below. If you don't follow him, what are you doing as a Rocket Lab investor? He's a must follow. And wish everyone a good week. Happy Easter, and see you next week.
See you guys.